everyone. I'm Denisha Devnarayan, and you're watching the Full Quota podcast on One World Sports Radio.
And welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim here. So a couple of housekeeping things. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video if you really do like it, and tweet us at One World Sports Radio. You can tweet us also at our individual Twitter accounts. Tim is at Tim32_cricket, and I'm at Mpho. But today, obviously, there's the Full Quota podcast. Today, we're talking CSA T20 Knockout competition again. This time, it's Group D. So we did Group D. We went from Group B to Group D. Now we're going to Group C. So let me just put up the Group D results. So everyone can look. We had the two Division 1 sides starting off against each other. They played, it was the Rocks against the Warriors. The Rocks won by 17 runs. Then the Eastern Cape Lanyati came up against the Limpopo Impalas. The Lanyati are effectively border. If you are still in the old system of doing things, they beat Limpopo by 8 wickets. It was a very easy win. The Warriors came up against the Impala. They put up a massive score of about 240, and the Warriors won by 120 runs. The Rocks then came up against the Lanyati again, and the Rocks won by 18 runs. That was a good game to watch. Then finally, the Rocks came up against the Impalas of Limpopo. They won by 32 runs. Limpopo managing to kind of restrict the Rocks to about 140, which I think was a win for themselves. And then finally, the Warriors came up against the Eastern Cape Lanyati in an Eastern Cape derby. It was 200 plays 200. And towards the end, we saw an incredible 108-run stand between Clayton Bosch and Jerry Ngolo to try and get them close. But it was a little bit too far for them in the end. So we've got Tim here to discuss it all. Tim, how was the week of cricket? We had cricket on a Monday for the first time in a while.
It was good. It was a good week. There were certainly some surprises right at the end, which you just alluded to. I certainly came into the group thinking about Poland and the Rocks and the Warriors would run away with it, but they did have a few shocks along the way.
Yes, no, there were. Look, I didn't think this group would give you an upset, but if there was a team that was going to upset you, it was going to be the Eastern Cape Lanyati. You had Marco Murray, you had Jerry Ngolo, who had played for them before, for the Warriors before. You had a lot of guys who were former Warriors franchise people who are now who are now relegated to essentially the Division 2, who had lots to play for, and it kind of felt like, even in that final game, you kind of felt like, guys, there was a little bit of stick, and you're like, okay, guys are a little angry in that Eastern Cape Lanyati side. But I think for me, I was disappointed with Limpopo, kind of like the Mpumalanga Rhinos. You can see that they're not ready, that they need a season or two. But let's go to the standout performance for you. So what was your standout performance in this tournament?
It could be 2 or 3 people, I'd have to say, but I'm going to have to go with Matthew Britsky. Matthew Britsky, just if anyone needs a reminder, did not play any of the CSA T20 Challenge matches last year for the Warriors. He didn't play a single game, and he came here with a point to prove. We've always known he's got the talent. We've always known that talent is there. He hasn't been quite as consistent as he would like, I think, but he dominated this round of fixtures. Absolutely dominated, and his ability to score all around the wicket was a huge asset as well.
And it was quite surprising because, I know Matthew Britsky from MSL. For the Nelson Mandela Bay Giants, and he does the exact same job that he did in the CSA T20. Yes, he may not have played earlier on in the season. That may have hampered his chances of being in selection, but he's the type of guy we've been looking for. at the top of the order, someone who can go guns blazing from ball one. I love the partnership he had with Vian Libba, which, as we spoke about it in the show, Vian Libba, the one guy with the high strike rate in the Mark Boucher era, 160. And if you look at Britske's numbers, he finished on 163 strike rate, scored 190 runs. That 80, I think, off of like 46 balls was one of the best innings you'll ever see. There's this cover drive where he doesn't move his feet. He literally just goes down on one knee, like literally from standing start down on one knee. His front foot doesn't move, and he just cut it behind square. That was one of the most beautiful things to watch. And a guy you want the selectors to look into. I want to see Matthew Britsky after the World Cup in that India series playing limited overs cricket for South Africa, because he's the type of guy we want. My standout performance was the other guy. It was the 108-run partnership between the two. It was Jay Ngola and Clayton Bosch. That is an honorable mention. But my standout performance was Clyde Fortain. Another of that World Cup winning under-19 side. He's been a very good wicketkeeper and he's been bounced around. I think he started out at the Warriors. Now he's at the Rocks and Paul, and he batted so well at the top of the order as the number 3. I know South Africa produces a lot of top order batsmen, but for a guy to be able to score hundreds and score runs, because he ended up with 150 runs. He got a duck in the second game, but he ended up scoring 46 in the final game, scoring at a boundary percentage of about 20%. Britsky scored at about 25. That's the type of guys you want. Those are the type of guys you want to be looking at. I understand everyone, because I think for me, that was the thing. Everyone was looking at Yanaman Milan and probably his brother Peter, but enter Clyde Fortain, he was like, wait, I'm here too. And I hope that he also gets into like SA emerging into the academy, because I do think he's the type of guy you want in that setup, especially from a limited overs perspective. Your standout player, obviously we did the performances, but is your standout player Matthew Britsky, or is it somebody else?
I was gonna go with Clyde Fortain because simply because it was a shock factor. I knew the talent, I knew he done it at a 19 level, but he hadn't been doing it recently. So this is a difficult one. I'm actually going to go left field. I'm going to go Jacobs for the Warriors. I think he's the leg spinner.
He was good.
Actually, two. Can I have two?
You can have two. You can have as many as you want, as long as it's within the period of our podcast.
So it's Jacobs. Complete. To most people, he will not have been somebody we know. Pearson High, from the area. But I thought the fact that he came in when he had, of course, he injured. It was a lot of pressure. He was going to play. I thought he bowled well. He bowled accurately. He bowled wicket to wicket. The other one, I've been speaking for a long time now, while he was at the Cobras, and I'm so glad he's made the move, because now he's going to be, in my opinion, the big man rather than one of the young up and coming. Imran Malik. Imran Malik was exceptional in this tournament. In 12 overs, 357, at an economy of under 5. I think it was 4.7 for the tournament so far. Absolutely incredible. Changes of pace, use of flight. His height is a huge asset, so he gets an extra bit of bounce from that high action. He's a very, very clever bowler, and I think in a season or two, he could be knocking on that door, particularly for this format for the Proteas. Another couple of seasons like this, I was very, very, very impressed with him.
So I see you found another off spinner to supplement to your Simon Harmer off spinner cabinet and fan club that you have there. I love him and Manak. I saw him bowl last year in the Momentum One Day Cup. I was really impressed by how he went about his business. And South Africa doesn't have a lot of off spinners. It's him and Pranil and Subrayan essentially. And I do think, well, orthodox. Obviously, you can say left arm orthodox spinners, a slow left arm, but he's a right arm offie, and I was really impressed by him. And every time I see him, it looks like he's getting better, and he's very young. And so the thing about spinners is that you age like a fine wine, you get better, and so it's going to be quite exciting as we go through. Maybe even he could be the replacement post Kesh. In the test side, and that's about 3, 4, 5 years looking into the future. So he's someone to look into, and also for if we have a tour to India or the subcontinent, a test tour, he's someone I'd want to see a little bit more. The other bowler that I was impressed by is Ziad Abrahams. I think we all know that in the Western Province, in Western Cape, the Rocks got the pick of the bunch. They got the Malan brothers, and then on top of that, they took the best of the youngsters. And this is the best of the youngsters in Manak and Ziad Abrahams. And I was happy Ziad Abrahams actually bowled really well. He's quick, and he's accurate, and he does a job, and he did a job for them last season. And so it's really good to see that they've managed to get him. Although the Rocks managed to get him game time and get him to play. But for me, my standout player was actually John Smuts. I really enjoyed him. I know people are going to be like, I get it. I know you guys don't love John Smuts, but he's an all-round option. Bats at the top of the order, scored a lot of runs, scored about 120 runs in this tournament. He had a boundary percentage of about 21, which was very high, and that's what you want. He dominated bowling attacks, which is what you also want from a team in Division 1 coming up against Division 2 bowlers, and he bowled really well too. He took about 4 wickets this week, and so that's something that you want from John Smuts, who has been overlooked by the selectors. He was in the Proteas T20 side. No, he's not there, and it's not so he had bad performances. They were okay, but everyone else had bad performances around him. I know his Proteas career has ended, but it's good to have him say to the selectors, "Hey, you left me out. This is what I can do, and I'm going to put egg on your faces rather than that." Speaking about guys who wanted to stick it to the selectors, there was a certain Jay Malan who played for the Rocks. He was my disappointment of the tournament. I expected a lot more, and I got nothing. What did you think, Tim?
Yeah, it was almost a little bit difficult to be too critical because he was in for such a short space of time. He didn't even have, half a dozen balls to get himself in. He would arrive and then he would be out. I tweeted, he's gonna needs to perform today. The next ball is out. Disappointment. You have to say disappointment, and he'll know that. He would want to prove that he's got the stuff in the quarterfinals when the quarterfinals come round.
Yes.
But
it was just so disappointing. You just sat there going, guys, come on. Also, Tim, I know this is do you have any other players who disappointed you?
Not player as such, no. There were individual things that annoyed me.
Let's
fielding.
have those.
The fielding. This podcast needs to be after 10 o'clock so I can swear. Oh my word. The fielding. And it's not just the catching. It's the ground fielding. It's the guy going, and it's not one player, it's not two players, it's about seven or eight players all over the last 3 days. It's the ball goes down to final leg, the guy goes with one knee, gets his body behind the ball ball hits his wrist, hits the boundary. You've done everything. You've done everything. You've got the body behind, and it still goes for 4.
Hey, look, the long barrier no longer helps. The long barrier stop no longer works, it seems. But
the catching was woeful. What it does tell me, as predominantly, not always, but predominantly, it's the Division 2 players, but not exclusive. It's important for that. What it is Division 2 players making mistakes, semi-professional. Nobody sees it. Don't worry, it'll happen again on a couple of balls. And it did. It did happen. It happened.
But
there was a drop catch.
Those
and
Division
a couple
2
balls
teams,
later, Sorry?
No, but what I'm saying is those Division 2 teams were being put to the sword. So if you think about it, they were like that 240 that the Warriors put on Limpopo. Like, I also wouldn't want to be on that field.
But those catches, bro. Those catches. I'm sorry. Nobody. You can't excuse. You can excuse poor batting technique. You can excuse bowling that is inaccurate. The catching is a basic. It's basics. It's basics.
And that is why they're Division 2 sides. Speaking of the Division 2 sides, Tim, I was really impressed by the Eastern Cape Linyati, also known as Border. I looked at that team and I was like, wow, in another group, they could cause problems. Even in the 4-day game, in the first class competition, they're going to cause a lot of problems amongst the division, which is why I kind of feel like if we had to wait for 2 years for relegation, that's actually a little bit tough, because you've got right now, if you look at the teams that we have, there are 2 teams in Division 2 that are not competitive yet, and that's Mpumalanga and Limpopo. But all the others, Southwestern Districts, Northern Cape, what was that other team that played in the previous weeks? It was the Inland, the Tuskers. Now Border look very strong, and I'm going to add Eastern Storm to this because I think they are also pretty strong as Easterns. And I looked at this Border side. Marco Murray, good at the top. He was playing for revenge, but it wasn't guys like Marco. It was Jerry Ngolo, who got a Warriors contract, didn't get a Warriors contract, got a Warriors contract, and didn't get one, and now he's playing for Border. He played really well, 108 runs. He had a strike rate of 168, a boundary percentage of 23, and that is up against Division 1 bowling attacks. It's really good to see. Ndisi Malika at the top, he batted really well, and then obviously Clayton Bosch there with that 64. What did you make of that Border side?
I think what's important, I thought they were overall, I was pretty impressed. There is definitely something there for Paul Adams to work with. There's absolutely no doubt about it. There's definite talent there. You just saw that Borland game. They reduced Borland with that batting lineup, which was one of the probably the strongest of the competition, to 140. 140 on a pretty flat wicket. I thought they in that particular game, their bowling unit worked extremely well. But the other thing I'd like to point out is that Nkolo's innings. 2 years ago, he retired from the game. I am convinced if this structure had not happened, we would not have seen that innings. Yes. If this restructure had not happened, he would not have come back into cricket in all probability, and in all probability, we would not have seen that innings. So this restructuring is already having a good impact on our game and on the players that are on the fringes. It's already having a good impact on them, giving them a place to show their talent.
Well, if you think about it, in March, we had 6 teams playing. That's 615, that's about, 90 players. Now we've got 16 teams playing. That is way more. There's about 225 players there, or 230 if you want to round off. And for me, that's what you want. That's essentially what you're looking. 240. I beg your pardon. My maths was a little bit wrong there, but that's what you want. Whereas previously those guys playing for Border, for Limpopo, for Easterns would never get airtime on SuperSport at all. SuperSport wouldn't buy the product. Now they are, because you're pitting them up against Division 1 sides. And I'm happy that the limited overs competitions are like this, so we can see. Yes, it's gonna be a little bit longer for the first class, the Red Bull game, to have all the teams there. But yeah, and same here, I'm happy with Jerry Nola. I was so impressed. I was so happy for him, because essentially everyone was talking about, yes, there are contracts that were lost. People didn't get contracts at the end of this. 75 players didn't get contracts at the end of this. However, there were guys who were given the opportunity to now put themselves in the shop window, and the shop window is the television. And now people are going to be asking questions. Now you can actually ask valid questions about why guys aren't. It's no longer a Twitter little rabbit hole of cricket Twitter in South Africa, where we discuss these players because we watch them either on a YouTube or some stream that we found, or we actually were at the game and nobody was there. So I think for me, that's the exciting thing about this tournament. And a word on the youngsters. One guy, Tristan Stubbs. We chatted with Robbie P about Tristan Stubbs before on our podcast. I thought he played quite well. I thought that 46 at a strike rate over 200 was quite. It's what saved it, because if you look at how that game ended up, without Tristan Stubbs' contribution, they would have been in trouble. But I thought he bowled okay. I wasn't a fan of his lengths, even though, because he's a tall guy, so he just needs to be able to find that right length. I thought he was more used as a run-saving darter. That's the way it's the way that frustrates me about people think Adam Markram's a bowler because he can dart a ball in. That's fine, that you can do that, but I need you to try and show us your skill. And because Tristan Stubbs is seen as an all-rounder, I thought they'd give him that option. John Smuts shouldn't be asked to do anything with the ball apart from darting it in. But he got some purchase, he got some turn, he got some wickets. I wanted to see a little bit more from Tristan Stubbs with the ball. But with the bat, I've seen more than enough to be like, let's give this kid a chance. Let's see where it goes. I think if we're looking for power hitters, this group had a lot of power hitters.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the group that showed you the real talent in this particular format. I was a little bit surprised. I was genuinely happy with everything that Robbie did. I was a little bit surprised that Fionn didn't bowl more. I was a bit surprised. So while Tristan bowled, if it was a choice between the two, I would be bowling Fionn. Fionn has bowled a bit more, but Fionn is more experienced. I would have said, Tristan, listen, for you in this competition, just hit the ball. Just hit the ball. You're not going to be bowling anything unless we're absolutely desperate. Fionn is going to be bowling half a dozen overs. So I was a bit surprised.
But in the quarterfinals, I think we're going to get to see a little bit more of that. But I do think, obviously, when it gets tough and it gets tight, who the Sheila goes to will be quite interesting to see, especially in those middle overs. I think they got apart from that first game where you could say they were a little bit rusty, the other two games against completely below par opposition, apart from that last game. But even in that last game, they were giving people an opportunity to bowl and seeing what it was. And so I wasn't too phased about it. It just was disappointing that they managed to allow Border to get to 200, because you want to kill the game. When you have the opposition, I think it was 88 for 5. And yeah, it just blew out from there. Okay, next group starts tomorrow. We don't have all the squads, but we'll talk about the squads anyway. Is Group C. They will be playing, so the 4 teams will be playing for spots to meet the Warriors in the quarterfinal 3. That'll be the winner. And then for the runner-up to meet the Rocks in the quarterfinals in Kimberley. But the fixtures for tomorrow, you've got the Dolphins against the Northwest Dragons. That's the Division 1 game. and then followed by the Eastern Storm and SA Under-19. I know a lot of you are excited to see SA Under-19 play, to see what the future holds. There's some really exciting guys we've all seen on YouTube or Twitter in various videos that we're getting to see live on TV. Following day, SA Under-19 open up with the Northwest Dragons. The Eastern Storm play the Hollywood Bets Dolphins. On Sunday, you've got SA Under-19 taking on the Dolphins, and what I consider an upset alert here. The Eastern Storm taking on the Northwest Dragons, because I see both the Storm and the Dragons at the same level, and so that's where I'm thinking. Are there any fixtures that you're excited to see there?
Well, the thing with this group is I don't actually see a weak team. I don't see a Mpho. I don't see a Rhinos. I see, in all probability, I think we know who will go through, but I genuinely think, particularly if the SA Under-19 guys can acclimatize to playing at this level, I think all 4 teams could go through. They're all on a similar level, these guys, these players. And if you look at the crossovers, so there's guys in the Northwest who've played against guys the Under-19s. They know each other. It's going quite well. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
That's a little harsh on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a good side.
The Dolphins are favourites. They are favourites. They will finish top. Yes, they will finish top. But I think it could be quite a tight group, particularly as you say, if there isn't upsets along the way. I think it's quite possible.
Where do you think the SA Under-19s could win? Could they beat the Northwest Dragons?
I think they could. The problem is going to be is their bowling. So their bowling isn't strong enough. I just think that their batting is stronger than their bowling. Now I could see them making 180. I'm not sure they're going to defend 180. Important point to point out here is the Northwest don't have Delano Potgieter.
Yes.
Which is a massive loss. If they had Wesley Marshall and him, then I would say, forget it. Forget the Northwest going through. Forget it.
Yes. And so let's look at the squads. Let's have a look at the squads. The Dolphins are captained by Pranel and Subran. You've got Sarel Abbey, who's been on this podcast before. KP, Protea player there, the test man. You've got Grant Rudolphson, who I think a lot of people want to see play this format. Marks Ackerman, who's also another one of those players that could light it up. When given Kaya Zondo's there as well, he'll be hoping to rekindle that form that he's had about a couple of years ago, where he was playing really well in T20s. Ron de Swart is an up-and-coming, exciting limited overs batsman. I really do like the look of him. They've got Bradley Porteous, Udirile Mudimukwane, who played for the SA Under-19 last year. Jason Smith, who came from Western Province. Tando Ntini, who moved from the Titans. They've got Tamsanga Kumalo, Darren Dupavilon, Cohen Mungru, who's always good in this format on slow wickets, Othniel Bartman, as well as Bryce Parsons, who is a sad... I can't believe he couldn't get a contract at the Lions. The Dragons of Northwest, the other Division 1 side, Nicky van den Berg is captaining them. Chad Klaassen, the pacer, is coming in. Tahir Isaacs, they've got Duan Janssen, Eben Botha, Aldred Hawken, who is always like one of the quickest guys I've seen around the circuit. Jason Oakes, Johannes Diseko, Lesego Senokwane, Mlandisa Zuma, good Heinrich Petersen, Chris Brett, Senran Mutusami, who will be playing against his former team, Shaylin Pillay, Wesley Marshall, and Caleb Seleka. The Eastern Storm, we could only get off of their Facebook page, so this might change. They might add a few names there tomorrow. But this was, I think, the last 11 that they played. They put up Matthew Arnold, Clayton August, Ryan Cartwright, Wesley Kulentianos, Kwesi Gumete, Jean Koopman, Cizo Masondo, Tumelo Simelane, Yuri Sneeman, Grant Thompson, who played for the Titans in the 4-day series last year, and Snentlantla Zwane. SA Under-19 that we're playing tomorrow will be Liam Elder, Matthew Boast, Diewald Brevis, who is actually signed for the Northern. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how he bats because there's lots of videos about this kid and everyone talks glowingly about him. Michael Copeland, Ethan Cunningham, him and Brevis played SA Under-19 in 2020, earlier on in 2021. Valentine Kitme, GJ Murray, Apiu Mnyanda, Jesse Prodel, Andilese Milani, Jade Smith, Caden Solomons, Asake Zaka, Joshua Stevenson, and George Van Heerden. Any players across the teams that you are looking forward to seeing coming through tomorrow and over the weekend?
Two players for me that for different reasons. Caden Solomons is under 19s. As far as I'm concerned, at the under 19 level, he's the best wicketkeeper batsman that I've ever seen at that level.
Okay.
Extremely good. Behind the stumps, also a very useful batsman. Did well at the Cups week last year. And then Jason Smith. Jason Smith has been my pet project, self-confessed for like 4 years now. But Jason Smith has done the right thing. There have been players that are in the system that have stayed with their franchise. I'm not going to mention names, but they just are, and I'm a bit surprised that they have. Jason Smith has done the other thing. He's gone and he said, no, I need a fresh start. I need a fresh team. I need to go be around a different environment. He's with the best team. He's with the best coach. And he's with probably the most balanced side of this competition. And probably for the best rest of the season as well. So he's got everything. He's got all the bases to perform. Everything now. It's now up to him. He's made the move. He's acclimatized. He's got to answer the critics now and say, listen, I'm not just a bit part player. I want to play South Africa because that's where I think his level is.
And South Africa needs an all-rounder, so he needs to step up because I'm assuming everyone in Cape Town had a spot in the Proteas waiting reserved for Jason Smith. So that's something that they'll be wanting to do. I think from my end, I'm interested to see Wesley Marshall bat at the top. I don't want him to bat in the middle order for Northwest. I want him to bat at the top. He's one of the big power hits to have here in the Gauteng club scene. Played for Old Edwardians with Mitch van Buren. And the guys there, so I think he's quite good, and we've seen what Wesley Marshall can do at the top of the order with Ryan Rickleton last year in the One Day Cup. They were just unbelievable, and it was a massive coup for Northwest to get Wesley Marshall. Also want to see Senran Mutusami. I want to see his batting. I think he can give the selectors a little bit of a headache with a spinner who actually can bat, because right now we've got spinners who can't bat. But Sen, if he can give us a pretty decent economy rate similar to that of, it doesn't have to be Keshav Maharaj-esque or George Linde-esque. It just has to be at a level where his batting warrants him being in the side and he can bat it as a number 8, because I think, or even a number 7. I hope that he can bat higher up, because I know for KZN he's batted at the top of the order before. So it's one of those situations where if you need a spinner who can bat, he's the guy that you should be looking to going forward from a limited overs perspective. The other thing that I want to see Thando Ntini again. I do think that he will enjoying his time in KZN. I do think that he's some guy, he needs to take the step up, and the easiest way for these Protea-esque players, they need to take a step up there. Othniel Bartman, I want to see more of him again. I think we saw a lot of him in the 4-day series. He's very quick, he's very accurate, and I do think that he could do a job for the Dolphins. Keegan Peterson's a guy I want to see if he can adapt his game to the limited overs format. And then like for me in the under 20, in the under 19s, I want to see Devil Brevis against franchise level opposition, not as friends, but like men, and see how his batting holds up against that. Because I think for me that's something I want to see, because the Northerns clearly rate this guy. And everyone else rates him, so we need to be able to see whether, because that's the thing about S under 19 playing in this tournament. It's not for them to be able to see where the level is, and so they need to be able to make sure that they are at that level. Or even if they lose all 3 games, they'll have to go back and then decide what they want to do, because this is the crux moment where they are seeing it's like an internship for them. They're coming in, they're playing. If they're successful, they'll get contracts. But if they're not, they have to go back home and figure out what they need to do to adjust to be able to get those contracts. Because we know this is the Rubicon. The moment you cross this Rubicon and you say you want to be a professional, it can be a very tough road if your game doesn't adjust to the level. Whereas sometimes this is where people will be like, I've played S under 19, I don't see a future here in this game. I'm out. So, but I do hope that doesn't happen. But this is where they're going to be making up a lot of their decisions. So for me, that's the exciting part. I want to see how Easterns do. They're always a very good side, and they've got a lot. They've got chips on their shoulders, and I think that's something that you're going to have to see with this Eastern side, is that they effectively are Northern's poorer cousin, and it's their way of letting everybody know that they deserve to be a Division 1 side, because to a certain extent, I think they lost out that spot to Northwest. So that game on Sunday, I think it's going to be quite good. It's going to be quite intriguing. I don't think they've got the fast bowlers or the bowling to win games, but I do think their batting can help them get close enough. But I'm really worried about their bowling. As you said, SN19, you're worried about the bowling. Obviously, kids bowling against men could be tough. The Dolphins look very strong. Northwest, the fast bowling of the Northwest outside of Aldred Hawkins is something I'm interested to see how that works out. But from a batting perspective, I'm happy with the Northwest. It's just that portion of how you fit the bowling attack after Mutusami and Aldred Hawkins. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. I do think I think for me that's what when I look at that Northwest side, that's where my apprehension comes in. Is yes, see Hawken, I see Mutusami. What's next? And what's next could be hard for them to win games. So that's where it is. Whereas you look at the Dolphins, it's like, okay, like how do I score runs here?
You've hit the nail on the head there. It's the same with the Eastern side. Majority of those guys have played some kind of franchise cricket in the past, but very few nailed down a spot. There's a reason they're there. There's a reason why they can have a huge emphasis on what Grant Thompson does. Grant Thompson doesn't contribute, they're in trouble.
And Kulentianos. I think they'll be very reliant on Kulentianos, and it's Arnold, Kulentianos, and Thompson. If any of those 3 don't fire, they're going to find themselves in a lot of trouble. Yeah. But I do hope S under 19 isn't as one-sided, but you might get that one player or that 2-3 players who are actually way above their under 19 level and actually are closer to franchise level stepping up. But I do want to see more team-based cricket, I think, from S under 19. Yeah.
That's been what's been a little bit concerning for the tournament as a whole, is it's been too individualized. It's been too many individuals. This last group sort of backed that trend. There was a bit more of a team emphasis coming through. That is at the 19 side. I reckon I'd be very surprised if 4 of those batsmen are not playing 2 years.
4-day franchise cricket after.
I'd be very surprised. Look, anything can happen. They could immigrate, or they can get a job in a business or something. Anything can happen. But Van Heerden Copeland,
Mm-hmm.
Rivers,
Mm-hmm.
and just get the squad up for me. And Cunningham. They are.
Okay.
I've seen them all at various level with a live stream. All highly talented. The bowler to watch out for was Jesse Probel, left arm, finger spinner, from down here. So he's one to watch out for. And Similani as well. Similani is also a good job kicking bowling. So
The Dolphins.
I'm interested to see how those boys do. Yeah, the Dolphins.
No, I'm just saying something to watch out for in the Dolphins is how if Bryce Parsons has managed to break through into that 11, because that was one of the reasons why I think he moved from the Lions to the Dolphins to see if he couldn't break in. I've watched Bryce Parsons bat. I think he's one of the most incredible batsmen you can get, and he's explosive. He can hit hard at the top of the order. And I do think he deserves an opportunity at this level. This is it for him. I think he's a pro-tier player. He just needs to get a starting gig. I thought him moving to KZN would have been would have been a struggle for him to get in. I would have actually preferred for him probably to go to Northwest, because he would have played every game for the Northwest. He would have pretty much played every game for any other franchise that isn't Northerns, that isn't the Lions, and that isn't KZN, the Dolphins. And that's why I was like, I was really surprised that he decided to go to the Dolphins. I understand the Dolphins are a really lovely setup, but I do think it's time for Bryce Parsons to play cricket. He cannot be on the side of the field too long. And I do hope they give him an opportunity. I don't know where he gets the opportunity, but I do think he does deserve to play in that Dolphins 11. I just don't know how it's going to be, but we'll see. I think he is one of the exciting young batsmen we have in the country, and he needs a chance.
I will say this that in his favour. Muthusamy left, and Muthusamy got plenty of time at the Dolphins. I was surprised he's left, but he left. That created space for Parsons. So I agree, while it looks on the face of it rather difficult to get in the 11, I do think the fact that Muthusamy played quite a lot for the Dolphins last year in various formats, I think you might find he will get a decent run in this season.
Yeah, and that's what we want. I think I think that's what you want to see the youngsters come through. I just don't know how the Dolphins are going to do the whole Grant Rulofsson, Sadal Advia, Keegan Peterson top three. I think it's a very traditional top three, and they could fall into the Knights trap.
I'm hearing Grant is going to sit on the bench for the moment. Nothing confirmed, but I'm hearing Grant is going to...
So who's going to keep? Mark Ackerman?
I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay. This is news. You heard it here first on the Full Quarter podcast.
I'm hearing it's most likely that they're going to open with Sarah, which means I can't really
Bryce
see...
is the other guy.
Huh?
Bryce
Sorry?
opens in two. Bryce is the other opener.
Yeah. I can't really see them leaving Keegan for obvious reasons, because...
Yes.
Yeah, I can't really see that happening. So if Sarwell is going to open, then...
That is big for a guy who I think Grant Rulofsson is so close to pro-tier selection in the 50-over game. If there's an injury to Markram or even Yanaman Malan at the top, Grant Rulofsson should be the guy touring with the team, playing, because he scored the most runs in the Momentum One Day Cup. So it's quite interesting that you wouldn't try and see if the 50 overs translates to the 20. So
what has happened this season is that we've had guys who are in the squads but are sitting out. So, for example, Harlis Fulham is here. He's available. Stephen Van Sale was available for Boland. They said, we want you for the rest of the season. We don't want you playing this. We want you to rather get back to 100% and be available for the other formats. So you could find, maybe, so Grant, your time will come You were brilliant at the 50 overs. You'll be playing a couple of weeks of the 4-day stuff. Don't stress. We will be coming, bring you in. So there has been a lot of that going around.
I wouldn't want to be a coach making those decisions, which is why I would not. So Imran Khan, all the best. All the best to all the other teams that are playing in the final group of the group phase of the CSA T20 Knockout. Remember, I'll just give you those fixtures quickly. The Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we've got 6 cricket games to get through, and then we will be going into the knockout stages. We're already just looking for the final 2 teams, the final 2 teams to take us through into the knockout stages, starting on Tuesday, the 19th of October. It finishes just before the World Cup, this whole tournament. So it's a quick, bite-sized thing that's happening. Well done to CSA for getting these bubbles working. I'm really impressed and really good on them. Tim, we'll chat again next week after these games are done. Hopefully, we'll be talking SA Under-19 continuing in this tournament, because I think for them, they would need that, because I don't think they've got a lot of games coming up until that next year's World Cup. So really, really awesome to chat with you again. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the cricket to everybody who's watching and listening. And hit us up on the social media platforms, and let's have the discussion. Let's talk cricket. Let's try elevate the domestic game. For myself and Tim at the Full Quota Podcast, remember to like, subscribe, and do all the things that YouTube people ask you to do. Subscribe to our channel, and also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Outside of that, have a great weekend. Enjoy the cricket. Tim, thank you very much, and goodbye. Good night, and lesale kakahiso.